Support for this program is provided by the men and women of the Louisiana Forestry Association. Through sustainable forestry, LFA members promote the health and productivity of Louisiana's forests for generations to come. And the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Louisiana Public Square. I'm Shauna Sanford, co-anchor of Louisiana, the state we're in. Well, this month, we explore a weighty topic, both literally and figuratively, Louisiana's obesity problem. In a state that elevates eating to a communal ritual, it's no wonder we have issues with weight. And with a culture that celebrates food at festivals for andouille, barbecue, tamales, yams, rice, and pies, both meat and dessert, there are unlimited temptations year-round. But this type of lifestyle comes with a cost, one of the nation's highest number of overweight and obese adults and children, and healthcare issues that overburden an already fragile healthcare system. So how serious is obesity in our state, and how is it affecting our citizens? And do we truly own our own health, or should it be a shared responsibility? For Baton Rouge resident Arlene Pitcher, every day brings her 7,000 steps closer to her fitness goal. Using a pedometer provided by her employer, Oshner, Arlene tracks her daily physical activity online in a personal wellness journal.
This is the number of steps I've done for the week. If you notice, the bar goes up and down. The more steps, the more points I get to help lower my insurance rate.
By reaching individually assigned wellness goals, Oshner employees can earn a reduction in their insurance premiums.
For a family, that could mean a savings of $2,700 a year.
Susan Piglia is the director of corporate programs at Oshner. She says the company's wellness program was created in direct response to rising healthcare costs, many of them due to obesity-related diseases.
We follow the national averages. Approximately 66% of our employees are either obese or overweight.
Since the program began in 2008, 8,000 employees have lost a total of 33,000 pounds. There's been a 1% decline in obesity, and the company has seen a decrease in medical payments.
We are keeping track of our healthcare costs, and our trend for those successfully participating in the program is lower than the medical trend for the entire employee population.
Oshner's wellness program is just one of the many approaches Louisiana companies, both private and government, are taking to combat the state's obesity problem. According to a 2011 report by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, Louisiana ranks 5th in the nation for obesity and 4th for childhood obesity. Not surprisingly, the state also ranks 4th for adults with diabetes and hypertension. An estimated $1.2 million was spent in Louisiana on obesity-related healthcare issues in 2008 alone.
Many people that are obese have trouble with asthma. Kids in particular can frequently have trouble with, and adults with lower extremity discomfort just from having to carry an excess amount of weight on their lower body. And in children, you see a lot more psychosocial aspects related to obesity.
Dr. Stuart Gordon is a pediatrician who chairs the Louisiana Council on Obesity Prevention. He's concerned about a growing health trend he's seeing among his young patients.
We're seeing a lot of what used to be sort of adult diseases in the pediatric age group and as young children as 8, 9, 10 years of age. Seeing children that are morbidly obese, have high blood pressure, requiring insulin or type 2 diabetes, at used to be called adult onset diabetes. And we're seeing that in young children now, and all that as a result of the obesity epidemic.
Dr. Stephen Heimsfield is the executive director of the Pennington Biomedical Research Center in Baton Rouge. He says the road to the obesity epidemic began at least 50 years ago.
Well, a very important contribution to the obesity epidemic Our practices started half a century ago, 1950s, related to breastfeeding and to diet during pregnancy, weight gain during pregnancy, and other factors around the pre-partum period, as we call it, and the early infancy.
Studies show that formula-fed rather than breastfed infants are more prone to obesity. Louisiana's Women, Infants, and Children, or WIC program for low-income families, has begun promoting breastfeeding to curb that trend. And soon, the state will make it easier for mothers who work outside the home to breastfeed their babies.
In the upcoming year, we have to have lactation rooms where we encourage women that are working to breastfeed their babies in the workplace in 10 state buildings.
Dr. Jimmy Guidry is Louisiana's state health officer. He says the legislature has been proactive in recent years in targeting obesity factors, including the inactivity, which earned Louisiana the title the laziest state by Business Week magazine in 2010. State lawmakers passed legislation requiring students to get in at least 30 minutes of physical activity each day, creating a work group to increase walking and bicycling paths statewide, and allowing facilities such as school running tracks to be used after hours by the public.
The paradigm has shifted from where we were working on farms. We're an agricultural society in Louisiana, and after school, many of us, our moms were at home, they weren't working, and we went out in the yard and played. Now children, they go in front of the TV or in front of the computer.
Poverty also plays a critical role in obesity. In a state where more than 66% of students receive free and reduced lunch, the front line of the obesity battle may be the school cafeteria. Back in 2009, in an attempt to reverse the obesity trend, the federal government established rules requiring schools to revamp their vending machines and provide students with healthier options. Louisiana implemented even tougher standards. Now, the feds have established new guidelines targeting school lunches.
The initiative is looking for, a reduction in fat to 30% of calories.
Dr. Catherine Champagne is a nutritional analyst with Pennington. She says the new regulations require more fresh fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. While schools will be provided just 6 cents more per meal to pay for the improvements, Champagne still considers it a good deal.
I still think the quality of a school lunch is going to be higher than what you can provide a child in a brown bag lunch for a lot less of a cost.
Although Louisiana has been proactive in its battle against the bulge, unlike 17 other states, it has avoided taxing snacks and fatty foods as an incentive to change behavior. Instead, Louisiana has passed legislation that protects food providers from being sued by obese individuals for their size and related health problems. Regardless of our genetic disposition towards obesity, Heimsfield says it isn't our destiny.
That's the part that all of us have to work hard at, is despite what genes we inherit, we still have to maintain a certain sense of responsibility in our weight.
And that responsibility is a shared one, says Guidry.
We need to take the attitude that it's not acceptable to be obese, that we all have to work to make sure we support each other. It's not an acceptable way of life.
Joining me in our studio audience to tackle tonight's weighty subject are Baton Rouge area residents who were randomly recruited and surveyed for us by LSU's Public Policy Research Lab. We also have members from health centers and schools and an LSU student and nutritionist whose focus is on childhood obesity. Now, reviewing some of the responses to the survey our participants were given, when asked whether obesity is a personal issue individuals should deal with on their own, or whether it's a public health issue that society needs to solve, 68% of the respondents said they feel that it's a public health issue. 19% feel that it's a personal issue, while 13% were unsure. When asked if they would favor putting a special tax on junk food to combat obesity, a total of 65% opposed this idea, some very strongly. A total of 27% supported the tax, and 8% were unsure. Asked whether individuals classified as morbidly obese should have to pay more for health insurance, 57% said no. 22% of the respondents said yes, while nearly just as many, 21%, were neutral. And when asked if federal funds should cover weight maintenance surgery, such as gastric bypass or lap band surgery for folks who want those types of procedures, the majority, a total of 57% of the respondents, supported this idea, some very, very strongly. A total of 32% of those surveyed opposed providing the funding, and 11% were unsure. So let's start right there with our studio audience. Would love to get your take on this. Do you feel that obesity is a personal issue, or do you think that it has become so widespread, that it's such an epidemic now, that it really is a public health issue? And we talked earlier, we really want this to be a conversation and for everybody to chime in. I know we have a lively audience tonight. So what are your feelings about this? Tara, I'll start with you.
I think that it would be absolutely just horrible if we saw this as simply a personal issue. And I think that it would be a terrible travesty if we also saw it just as a public health issue as well. I think that the only way that we're going to be able to tackle this issue, since it is such a national, widespread issue, and it's come across government and personal, that we need to tackle it from both ends, absolutely. So I would say that it's both. So
you're saying that people need to take responsibility for their own health and for their own weight issues, but also you're talking about government intervention, possibly?
I would say so. I think that the government shouldn't completely intervene and start telling the people what they should eat, what they shouldn't eat, but I think that there should definitely be some incentives coming from the government that would, you know, perhaps provide people so that they would be able to take that extra step to be able to say, you know what, I really want this for myself.
Yeah, well, I saw a lot of heads nodding in agreement with Tara, but could this be a slippery slope if the government gets involved with telling us what we can and cannot eat? Christy, what do you think about that?
I think government does not have to be involved in every decision. I think this is a personal responsibility. They should take responsibility for their actions, and I think the healthcare industry and the insurance industries are the ones that should step up, and not the government.
And not the government. Susan, what are your thoughts about this?
I think that the pace of society now makes it so easy for us to eat something that's not good for us because it's quick, it's inexpensive, it's right on every corner.
Very convenient.
Yeah. Staying at home and cooking is something that is non-existent with families that have two of the family members working, or a single mother working 2 jobs. It becomes very difficult. I do believe it is something that's a personal choice. I think also that insurance and the health industry really needs to be much more involved in that also.
Well, I think you bring up an excellent point, Christy and Susan, and that is the healthcare industry, the insurance industry, because right now, I mean, we're all paying for it. Do you agree? I mean, it is a personal issue, but really, aren't we all paying for it as a society?
Yes, and I think education about it, you know, that the government needs to educate, because it's going to cost them in the long run. And if there's more education about what to eat and how to get the weight off, some people just don't know how to get control of it.
Yeah, and you know, it was very interesting in the piece that we just saw. I mean, we know that Louisiana is known as the sportsman's paradise, but in 2010 we earned the nickname as the laziest state in the country. Can you believe? How does that make you feel, Marcia?
Humiliated and embarrassed. But I think I go back to the education. I'm probably the oldest one here, and I think of the education. When you look at a family walking down the street or somewhere and they're all overweight, you know it becomes what grandmother cooked, what mother cooked, what the children are eating. Now, I don't have as much faith in the insurance companies and the health, because they're not going to want to pay for this either. I think we've got to do either something in the schools. I don't want the government to take over, but somebody. I mean, we're 4th in the nation now, and Mississippi usually is the lowest, and we are. I just think it's gotten to a very crucial time that something has to be done to help these people, because they're living in a culture, they're living in something that's repeated for generations.
Right. Well, I want to get more into that, but I know, Charlotte, you have something you want to chime in and say.
Yes, I want to address that, because here in East Baton Rouge Parish last year, in fact, we started a pilot to implement the new wellness policy. I work with health centers in schools, and we have the school nurses in the schools and also the school-based health centers. And we try to, include as part of our education program stuff about nutrition. And this wellness policy, we had a teacher workshop a couple weeks ago, and we trained several PE teachers and other health teachers in 3 different elementary schools here in East Baton Rouge. And it was all about trying to get the kids to do more physical activity and what kinds of foods to eat, eat more fruits and vegetables. And so we have a big campaign that's beginning this year on that exact thing, to have them eat more nutritious foods and not to eat all the French fries. French fries are not a vegetable.
But we live in a culture, our state loves food. I mean, we celebrate food. You think about, you've got Thanksgiving, you've got Christmas, you've got New Year's, you've got Mardi Gras, you've got Easter, you've got, tons of festivals. I think you can find a festival in the state just about every single month of the year. We love food, good food here. So we're talking about a culture that's ingrained in, when you celebrate, you eat, right? So how do we deal with it realistically? I know that we're talking about educating the public. I mean, do you really think that's it? That people really are not aware that we have a serious problem? It's really, you think it's that?
That's part of it. There should also be an economic incentive to be healthier. We have 2 schedules for health insurance. If you buy your own health insurance, there's a separate schedule for smokers and non-smokers. And that makes good sense because smokers have more health issues than non-smokers. We also have a separate schedule for men and women because women use health services more than men. And it just makes good sense that that incentive should also be there for obesity, because at this point in time, we know so much about how obesity affects our overall health. And that incentive, a discount for good health, makes good sense at this point. When you go to get long-term care insurance, you get a discount for good health.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing from you all, and Ray, I'm going to let you chime in here in just a moment, but what you're saying is that it's not that so much that people don't care, it's just that they don't know how to eat. Is that really what we're saying here, Ray?
Well, I think in addition to educating folks about what they should or shouldn't eat, I think you have to, as she stated, you need to give them some incentive. If you think about it, when I came up as a kid, the things that we played with brought us outside. So that created the exercise that we needed. And so if you're outside doing something, you're not thinking about losing weight as a child. You're just doing what you do naturally. Because of the technology, and technology is a beautiful thing, but it has made us a nation of lazy people. The technology keeps the kids in front of the TV. So now you have kids at the age of 4 or 5 years old, they can operate a computer, whereas the parents are still trying to figure it out. But the kids are unhealthy because they're spending all of their time inside. And so when you get the kids outside, they don't know what to do.
But what do you say to people out there who are saying, well, if your kid is sitting in front of the television, for hours on end, why don't you make them go outside? When do the parents step in and say enough is enough? Doesn't that get back to personal responsibility, Joseph?
I think the television is the best babysitter for most parents nowadays. You've got a video game the kid plays at home, you know where your child is. He's in that room. He's not on the street with the chance of being kidnapped or anything else. He's not playing in the street, going to get hit by a car. I mean, it's like you said, it's totally different now.
It's the time that we're living in right now is what you're saying. But what about, before we bring our panelists out, I really want to get your feedback on the tax on junk food. You're talking about, the government getting involved. Would you support taxing junk food, candy, no, okay, let's talk about this. Why not? Okay.
A tax on food is a regressive tax. It affects lower income more than higher income. That's right. And then who is deciding what food is? Do you tax beef, not chicken? Do you tax free range less? I mean, you could make the food code like the tax code.
So you're saying no. Charlotte?
Well, my son was in Europe 2 years ago for a whole year in France, and he talked about it a lot, and he said that there they do tax junk food. And good food, fresh vegetables, things like that, they don't tax. And, the taxes on the junk food go towards helping the healthcare situation.
Well, isn't that sort of an incentive? I mean, if I don't want to pay more for, foods that are unhealthy, I'll steer clear of those if they're priced higher. Is that a legitimate incentive? What do you think?
Well, I don't think the tax, and I do understand what you're saying, the way they're using it in Europe, but I don't think it would necessarily discourage people because we tax cigarettes, but it doesn't keep people from smoking.
Right.
They're willing to pay the higher price to do what they want to do, but not enough to make an impact that would say that it is working. My personal opinion about taxing junk food is if a person really wants it, they're going to pay the higher price to get it.
To get it. Okay, all right. So listen, just sit tight for just a moment. We're going to bring our panel of experts out. That's all the time we have for this portion of the show. When we return, we'll be joined by our panelists to further examine Louisiana's obesity problem. Stay with us. Welcome back to Louisiana Public Square. Tonight we're exploring obesity in Louisiana. Joining us now is our panel of experts. Bruce Greenstein is the Secretary of Louisiana's Department of Health and Hospitals, which has taken on the challenge of fighting obesity statewide. Dr. Karen Elkindhirsch is the Scientific Director of the Women's Metabolic Health Clinic at Women's Hospital here in Baton Rouge. She's also an adjunct professor of human nutrition and food. Dr. Peter Kaczmarczyk is the Associate Executive Director for Population Science at the Pennington Biomedical Research Center. His main research interest is the public health impact of obesity and physical inactivity, particularly in children. And Dr. Kenneth Fino is Chief Medical Officer at Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Louisiana. He spearheads Tackling Diabetes, an aggressive public health campaign against obesity and preventable chronic diseases. Before we go to our participants and our questions, we want to first of all welcome you all to the program. It's great to have you here, and I know you heard our audience members, a lively discussion, but I want to get your feedback on some of the things that really came up during our time together when we were talking. They believe that, the obesity issue is a personal issue, but it's also a public health issue. But they were very much against taxing junk food. So I want to get your take on that. Dr. Fino, I'll start with you.
Well, I believe that the taxation issue is a highly charged one. And in order for that to happen, we're going to need political will. I think that when you talk about tobacco taxation, which occurred, it was really largely driven by the whole passive smoking issue. When an active smoker, smoked around someone who didn't smoke, that person who was not a smoker could get the same diseases that an active smoker could get. So that really was a public health issue that warranted economic sanctions like it did. The obesity issue is a little different. Some of these people have metabolic reasons why they're overweight. Some people have genetic reasons, and some are behavioral. So I think it's kind of a difficult thing to get into that whole taxation issue. And I'm a physician. I worry about more health issues than public policy, but I think Bruce probably has better insight on that.
Yeah, I think we're taxed enough already. I don't think we need more taxes to solve a problem that are about each of us as individuals making tough decisions. Yeah. Most people know what are the right foods to eat and what are not the right foods to eat. And we know there are marathon runners that like to eat a candy bar and drink a Coca-Cola when they're finished, and those sugar calories or those junk foods are not causing obesity in that person. So we really can't link those particular foods to the costs that our system is bearing. Whether it's an insurance company or our own programs with the state, the cost of obesity collectively, this is where it's public health, is a great weight financially on the state, as it is in the federal government. But the only way we're going to change this is not by making a candy bar 10 cents more expensive or having a surcharge in the drive-thru at McDonald's. This is where each individual and their family and their community and their congregations have to make a decision that they want to be more healthy. And to get there, what we as public health people should focus on is supplying good education and making the choices a little easier. Children in school don't ask to eat unhealthy food, but they go through the food line and they're given mainly bad choices overall. We make our society is filled with the conveniences that offer mostly unhealthy foods is the easiest place. So when we could see the market step up and supply foods that are about at the same cost, about as easy to get to, that's when people will be able to make easier and better choices, and as a society we'll all be much healthier because of it.
Well, Karen, I want to get your take on it, and I hope that I'm characterizing the sentiment here. You all do believe that it's a matter of personal responsibility, but you also believe that the government should intervene, should get involved in some shape, form, or fashion. Karen, are you surprised at all by what you're hearing?
No, but I was very happy to hear that most people felt that education was needed. And as much as everybody's sitting here telling me that they all know what foods to eat, I think most people don't. I mean, I deal with gestational diabetics, and I will tell you that people don't understand that orange juice is sugar. And you know what? It's the same as a Coke. And your body, yes, you might get vitamins, but when somebody takes too much insulin, we give them orange juice. And so, you know, that's when the light bulb goes off. And when people are testing their sugar and eating, it is amazing how well educated these people have become about what foods they eat. I think the biggest problem we also have in the States, because somebody was talking about Europe, is our portion sizes.
Oh yeah, that's
I mean, it's not about, I happen to be a marathon runner, so I know about what you eat, okay? So this is not genetic, this is work every day of my life is what I tell everybody, and it really is. But the point is, you're right, after I run, yeah, you know I want that sugar high and I need it. But the point is that it's all about portion. If you start denying a lot of things, then everybody wants it. You also have to know if you're an all or none person. You put that bag of potato chips in front of me, I'm going to polish it off. So I know I'm not going to eat one.
Well, knowing your triggers, it's very important to know your triggers and whether you can handle those triggers.
My husband and my boys can eat one, and I'm like, how do y'all do that?
Right. I am totally like you. I can't do it. I can't have it around me because it's a trigger for me. The trigger foods, I just can't stop. Dr. Peter, your take on what you're hearing?
Well, I heard a lot around diet and nutrition. And we can't really forget about the physical activity side of the equation. You know, we had some comments earlier about playing outside. And we do know that children who have access to outdoor facilities and are just outside, they tend to be less obese and they tend to be more physically active. Now, our entire society is designed around removing physical activity from our lives. You know, we have escalators everywhere. It's hard to find the stairs. We have drive-through windows for everything now. Sometimes you can't even go to the bank unless you have a car. So, you know, it's not just the diet side. I think the physical activity side is just really eroding from our lives.
Yeah, and it's a very important part and aspect of controlling the obesity. Al, I'm going to start with you because your question is a simple one, but I think it's a very important one. And why don't you ask our panelists?
My question is, what does the age of obesity look like? Where are we starting? Where are our trigger points on where we can attack this problem?
Who wants to take that? Dr. Fino, you look like you're ready to jump in.
The trigger points. Can you clarify?
We talk about education, and we need to get with young people, of course.
Right.
And then there's the middle-aged person like myself who gets his insurance, has a health coach, that kind of thing. So where are we really attacking the problem?
Well, I think that we have to attack the problem in multiple spots. You know, we have to teach the young kids, I mean, when they're little bitty, how to eat right. And that is something that I think is the responsibility of the parents, of the school. I think for folks like you who are a little bit older, that health coach is going to help you understand how to eat maybe for the first time in your life. I think that what Dr. Hirsch said is very true. We need more education. How many people out here really know how many calories a day should I really be consuming based on my height and my weight, called your basal metabolic rate? Most people don't know that. You know, most people don't know how much exercise burns how many calories. They don't know that. Education is a critical component of this entire problem, and I think we have to start when they're real young and teach them. You're only supposed to take, 700 calories, 800 calories, whatever it is, a day. For the average person, it's about 2,000 calories a day to maintain your body functions. Anything after that will go into fat storage, unless you have activity to burn those calories. Most people don't understand this concept.
But let me ask you this. Even if, can we get just a little bit more basic? Let's say we don't know our caloric intake or how much we're supposed to have, but don't people know that they need to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables?
Well, sure.
And stay away from the carbonated beverages and drink more water? I mean, just basic information?
Basic information like that. The government put out a pretty good program, 2010, My Plate. You take a plate, an average plate, not one of these platters they give you, at a restaurant, but an average 8-inch plate, split it into 4 quadrants. Half of that plate should be covered with fruits and vegetables. A quarter of it should be a lean protein, like lean beef or chicken or fish, and the other should be a whole grain. And that, if you eat that way and drink a little bit of dairy to get your calcium up so you don't get osteoporosis, you will maintain a good body weight with enough activity. But a lot of people will have 3 plates like that, and not with those types of healthy foods. And that's part of the problem. That's where the education piece, I think, is so critical.
Yes, go ahead.
What is Blue Cross and Blue Shield is doing to contribute to the education you so powerfully emphasize?
Sure, I'll tell you. We have multiple programs that we offer to Louisiana children throughout the state. First of all, our mission is to improve the health of all Louisianans through better health guidance and access to good health quality care. And even though some of these kids aren't our members or their parents aren't our members, we still go out, we're educating them. We have this Louisiana 2-Step for Kids, which is an online-driven program where they can go out and learn about different foods, how many calories are in the foods. They have little food trackers, how many calories they're eating a day, how many steps they're taking a day. So that's one of the things we're doing for kids. We also are sponsoring a $10 million match grant program with communities throughout the state, where we want them to improve communities, parks, bicycling paths, have gardens, that everybody can garden from, things like that. So we're investing a lot of money.
You're doing a
lot.
We're doing a lot. We're hearing from Blue Cross Blue Shield, but what about DHH? I know that you all are really trying to fight and combat the obesity problem.
We are doing so much right now and spanning. Al asked a great question. Where do we start? Where does it matter? Where do we start caring about it? When the baby's in the mama's tummy, right from the very beginning. So we run, it's incredibly important, and it lays out where the rest of the life and the predisposition for the baby and child and to adult. So we're working with pregnant moms through prenatal care, and we're changing the way we do that completely, because I don't think we've done a great job over the last, say, 40 years in Medicaid. We insure 70% of all the babies that are born in the state, so we will have an enormous impact. And then when babies are small, for low-income families that utilize, we saw in the program earlier, women and infant children that have nutrition programs. Before we used to give out formula and not so healthy food, and lots of it. Now we've changed it. We want to see where it's possible more breastfeeding, fewer packages of formula, more fruits and vegetables available. And that's early age. That's from 1 to 5. And now we're about to start working with the schools. Schools are making some strides. We want to see schools go further. We want to see out all of the vending machines, more healthy options in the schools. And we really want to see, even though it's a priority in many schools, not all do it, PE back in schools every day.
I know Christy couldn't be happier about that. She's a PE teacher. Christy is a PE teacher, and that's something I know that you're very, very concerned about.
I'm a PE teacher at a private school, and we have PE every day for 30 minutes. I teach preschool through 6th, and in the upper grades, it's every other day for 98 minutes. And I just see it's vitally important for these kids to get outside, to get active, to get away from the video games, and to get back to understanding that physical activity is not a punishment. It's fun. You can have fun playing a game of kickball or playing a game of soccer, and I'm glad that at least my school stands behind the PE program, and we have not cut it in any way and have in fact expanded it.
And really, Peter, that's what your research revolves around, right?
Exactly. Yeah, so we're trying to, through our programs with the report card, we have a physical activity report card each year, and an annual conference on childhood obesity. And we bring together experts from around the world, actually, on a targeted kind of approach each year to try to understand what we can better do from a research perspective to advance the science, to advance our understanding of how to tackle these issues. Because, you know, we're really working against our biology. If you think about obesity, for millions of years, hominids were, you know, eking out an existence in a hunter-gatherer environment, and our bodies are adapted to store energy. We really are. So we're battling our biology when we have to maintain a normal body weight.
Let's get back to pregnant women, and I know that you have.
Bruce brought up. I think that we've gained a large understanding of it's more than just genes versus environment. It turns out that actually your genes can be modified by your environment, and so that was a huge change. It's called epigenetics, and so we realized like certain genes can be turned on and off, particularly obesity genes in pregnancy. So if mom is fat and you have a bad environment, she's actually pre-programming her child to now be obese. So that poor child is entering the world. So when we're trying to fight an obesity epidemic, and I know, the president has been going, youth, it's like you got to get started on mommy first to fix baby. And I think that is a change as scientists and, as healthcare providers, that has changed the way we didn't know that before, that environment could just play such a huge influence on how then your genes are expressed even as a child.
Right.
So you're fighting that uphill battle. So that's why. And the second thing is the breastfeeding. And I know I'm the era that it was very in vogue to breastfeed and use real diapers. So I'm like
so that's coming.
That's
back.
coming back.
That's
it's
coming
really
back.
kind of interesting to see it come back. And
and it sounds like you all are on board with that. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And it sort of makes sense. But providing, I think the important thing is, I work full time, but I still did it. And it's not work didn't mean you stop breastfeeding. You do have to provide it. And we have a lot more equipment now that will allow that. Expressing milk or pumping milk is fine. That baby's still getting breast milk. It doesn't have to be breastfeeding, but it is the breast milk. So you can balance that.
Burns a lot of calories.
That was the thing. Burns a lot of calories. I actually does. It is over 700 calories a day. That
I've heard.
Burn. No, it definitely does. I know that. So that's how
we go with education.
There you go. You're right.
Evidently, when I grew up a long time ago, it was the norm, and it was done. We didn't have to educate it, but you're right. For about 40 years, we've just glided. And I had said earlier, when you see an overweight child, you look at mama to grandmama to the whole family comes in to the restaurant, and they're all ordering. So everybody thinks that what they're eating and what their family's eating is what everybody else is.
Yeah.
Now, you don't want to go in and invade their privacy, but somebody needs to tell them before they all have diabetes, like so many people in Louisiana, or they die an early death because of all these problems of overeating.
And so I keep hearing education, and is that the main problem in Louisiana? I mean, is it really about the education, or is it
and portion?
And portion sizes. Now, Linda, I know that you had a question about that. We were talking about the calories. So what's your question about that?
My question was, if I was saying that maybe if you go to a restaurant or something and you see a list of what's in it, then you would think twice before you order it.
That's right.
You would think about, okay, I don't want to put this because it's going to make, whatever.
Yes. Yeah. It'll add on the pounds. But now I will tell you, this is something that I've had to work with myself, because going out to restaurants, even for my little kid, it was always a treat. So you go and you're going to treat yourself, And for the longest, I wouldn't order a salad. Are you kidding me? That's not a treat. That's not a treat. But I've changed, and so we're talking about changing the way we think about it, right? I mean, that's a big task here in Louisiana. Bruce, I know you're not from here, but you've been here, and you know the great food that we have here, so you know what we're fighting against here.
So I'll tell you my personal story. I moved here and gained 11 pounds within the first several months. And we asked, well, when does it start? When do you start losing weight? Well, this time last year during Mardi Gras, I said, I've gained over 10 pounds. We've got to go ahead and change something. Of course, I waited till after Mardi Gras started. And I really had my share of king cake, but then I basically ratcheted it down. And you could have king cake, but you don't need a portion like this.
Right.
The food
Again,
is
portion
fantastic.
control. We're getting back to portion control.
I just weighed in. I was at a wellness program at Our Lady of the Lake yesterday, and I weighed in at 179 pounds. So my top was at 202. So I've come down more than 20 pounds in the last year since I've been here, but I'm a runner. I run. In fact, Dr. Ken and I go bike riding on the weekends together. I swim at the university pool. I work very hard. And education is critical, but here are the 3 most basic steps that we can all remember. Eat less, move more, consume more fruits and vegetables. Just start there.
Just start there.
Every day, all of us, this is Own Your Own Health. Make these basic decisions. Don't get the fries. Get a side salad. You're going up one floor in the building, find the stairs and go up. Where you can, park further away. When you have a choice on how much you could eat, if you're in a buffet, put less. Even though you paid for it at the same price, eat less.
Don't you think if you just make one change, if you just make a commitment to do one thing differently, then you can sort of tackle this instead of taking it all on too much too soon.
And over time, you will lose pound after pound, and there's nothing that motivates you even more to look down at the scale and see that you've lost a few pounds, and then you keep going and going.
Yes, Ray?
Well, one of my questions is, and I deal with this with some of my coworkers, and I won't say what I do, but I think the private sector needs to get more involved in giving incentive to employees to lose weight, because a lot of times you have folks who want to exercise, they may not have it in their budget to go to the gym.
Right.
But if the employer can maybe kick in half, then you're giving them an incentive. And then if there are some other things that are in that incentive package to say, well, if you lose so much weight, then, you'll get this, or this.
Right.
It's going to help the employer, because if you got healthy employees, they're taking less time off.
That's right.
They're less likely to get hurt, and they're going to be more productive.
What about Blue Cross Blue Shield? Do you all have incentives?
We do. Now, Ray, that is dependent on your employer. We go out and, when we sell benefits to various employers, we always offer them these types of programs and to educate them about these programs. But a lot of employers say, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to get involved like that. Now, I am starting to see a change just this year. Now, I came from a different state. I came from Texas, where it was much more prevalent for employers to do that. But I think that now the employers here are starting to understand that we're going to only reduce the total cost of health care, which is unsustainable the way it's going today, by keeping our employees, by keeping our people healthy. Because healthcare costs are an employer's #1 line item, and it's making them unproductive in this global economy we all are in. So they're starting to realize, if I can keep Ray healthy by giving him a free or reduced gym membership, by giving him a pedometer to count how many steps he has, and he enters those into some log online to track his diet. We give him points for his health habits, his good healthy habits, and then in the end there's some sort of a reward for you, whether it's a gift card or it's a reduced premium. There's a lot of different ways, and so I think the employers here are starting to get that.
Okay, slowly but surely, perhaps they are getting it. But for those people who work at places where the incentives are just not there,
just not there.
Peter, I want to bring you in, because really you can start right where you are. I mean, maybe you don't have the money to go to join a gym, but that still should not stop you from getting active, right?
No, it shouldn't. We're beginning to learn more about the role of the environment in shaping physical activity and nutrition, because as Bruce said earlier, we need to make some choices the optimal choice. So we make the healthy choice the optimal choice, and make it easy. And so in some cases it's not so easy depending where you live. So I think there's a long way to go in understanding how we can shape our environment, whether it's at work or at home or in the community, to kind of facilitate physical activity, to facilitate healthy diets.
I mean, you could go walking around your neighborhood. I know I see folks take a walk during their lunch break. I mean, if you make up your mind to do it, you can find a way to get that exercise in. Susan, yes, I saw you. Yes, I know you have a question. Hold on just 1 second, and we'll let Susan jump in.
I'm a school nurse, and I'm seeing more and more diabetes in young children. But I also want to say that I am seeing more and more education from those young children to me, because they know how to count their carbs. They know what good food is. They know what and they don't know it as good food. They just know it's the food that they can eat and not get sick. And so you have these children sitting next to other children in school, and they interact together, and that's a wonderful way for children to learn through their peers. And the more that we can teach our children to do something and how good it is for you, it's obviously, if it's that good for you, it must be that good for me. So then I'm going to ask Mom if I can get some apples at the grocery store instead of...
Right. And kind of, Ava, I think that kind of falls along the line of question that you had about educating children about obesity, right?
Yes.
Yes. What is your question exactly?
Yes, my question was, I noticed in the classrooms, you may find that they have a nutritional chart, but the education on nutrition is like non-existent, or it's very, small. I was just sitting here listening to her, and I was also thinking that it would be pretty good even if the insurance could, maybe people who have insurances, whether it's maybe wife, husband, or both, or whatever, maybe they can get a coach to come in their homes and kind of sit down and educate the family as a group. I think that would be a real good idea. I mean, it has to start in the home.
In the home. Bruce, yeah, you want to jump in?
I think we're on the cusp of a revolution here, because for the first time ever, we are collecting so much data, and we have professionals in these fields that are telling us how much certain diseases cost to the health plan, and educating insurers, and employers are starting to listen. For individuals, I think that adults have had certain education through whether it's television, reading, in their educational lives, but no other population can have the focused amount of attention as our kids. And in education, when educators say, well, we don't really do things like that, so first of all, oftentimes kids are getting 2 meals, 2/3 of their meals at school. So you have an enormous influence there. And then how can we coach up? How can we give the kids the tools to come home and teach their families? And if we lose this opportunity for this generation now, we will have lost the chance for both the kids and their parents while we have it.
One of the questions that I see that many of you all have asked, and we haven't actually defined it, obesity. What is obesity? How do I know if I am obese? That's a basic question that we really need to have the answer to. Yes.
Obesity is defined as a body mass index greater than 30. And body mass index is your weight divided by your height in inches squared times 703. Is that right?
Correct.
So it's just...
That sounds like a lot, because I always thought that if you were 100 pounds
let me tell
over,
you,
then you were considered obese. No.
So BMI is the gold standard.
Okay.
But what's starting to replace that now is waist circumference.
Okay.
That's easy to measure at home. Males over 40 inches is considered obese. 35 for females. Those are the two of the risk factors for metabolic syndrome, which is a precursor to diabetes, hypertension, hyperlipidemia, and cardiac disease. So if you want to measure your waist, anybody over 40 who's male, they're overweight on their way to being obese. Females 35.
Can we say that those diseases are directly linked to obesity, diabetes, type 2 diabetes, hypertension? Help us to understand that, because there's some controversy over that.
There is some real controversy about this. The conventional wisdom is about 91% of all adult onset diabetes is related to your lifestyle, like the choices you make with food, exercise, etc. But this metabolic syndrome thing is changing almost on a daily basis. Metabolic syndrome is a cluster of what we call biometric measures: your blood pressure, your blood glucose, the sugar in your blood, your lipids, like your high dense lipoproteins, which is the good lipid, and triglycerides, which is the fat, plus your BMI. Okay, and we use waist circumference instead of BMI because it's much easier to measure when we go out and screen people. If you have 3 of those 5 risk factors, you have what's called metabolic syndrome, which is a precursor for diabetes, hypertension, hyperlipidemia. Matter of fact, if you have metabolic syndrome, you have a 750% greater risk of developing diabetes and a 550% greater risk of developing heart disease. So it's scary stuff. And what they're finding now is that obesity is a marker for this, but it is not a predictor. In other words, there are people that are normal weight, like say all of us on this panel, but we could have metabolic syndrome. 40% of people with metabolic syndrome have normal weight, okay? And 20% of obese people do not have metabolic syndrome. So it's really an interesting phenomenon. And what they're starting to realize is that metabolic syndrome is caused by sugar. because they're finding that sugar is the link. And they're seeing, the reason they're starting to feel this way is because the same diseases that we see in alcoholics, various liver diseases and such, we're seeing in people that have metabolic syndrome.
Okay.
And so it's the sugar that's licking
It's the
it.
sugar. A lot of information. Do you all get that?
Yeah, do you get that?
Did that make sense?
And I'm going to also say, I think that the hardest thing in defining obesity is that for different people, there's what we call a best weight. So instead of talking about being obese or being fat, I like to talk about a healthy weight or an unhealthy weight or a best weight.
Okay.
Because like you were saying, I have seen patients who are overweight that have no comorbidities. None.
Right, none.
Comorbidity means like the hypertension. I have people who are thinner, yet they have type 2 diabetes and hypertension. Who's in worse shape? Who am I more worried about from a healthcare standpoint? It's not the obese, this quote obese person with a BMI of 40. It's the person with the BMI of 30 who's got diabetes and hypertension. So we really can't, I think we pigeonhole people with BMIs. I have some real issues with it. And also defining somebody as obese, I've tried to learn the terminology of not calling people fat or obese or whatever, but saying you're at an unhealthy weight, because people respond to that. This is not a good weight for me. There's a better weight for you, but your best weight, you still may not look like this. I'm small boned, I'm small. No, you can't be 5'2" and be my weight no matter how much you starve yourself. But that doesn't mean you're not at your best weight. And what's a good weight for you? Right. And so I think that is one of the hardest things because we like to put people in a little, like as a scientist too, I like to put people in little pigeonholes. You're in this group and you're in that group. But in reality, when we deal with people, we have to individualize.
Yeah, that's very important.
Isn't it true that some of those tables that are utilized for that were developed like in the 40s and 50s?
Right. And they were, and there's also
and they don't account for
being muscular,
I have
like
big bones, big shoulders,
right? Or you're very muscular. Let's say
you're very muscular, exactly.
Right. Some of these.
So the takeaway before we leave here, because we are totally running out of time here, but we really want to leave with some concrete information that we can take back to our schools, to our communities, and share with people about what we can do to combat our obesity problem. So, Bruce, I'm going to start with you. What is the one thing that you would want to leave with our audience members here and those who are watching?
Again, it's elemental, I think. We all talked about it earlier, about personal responsibility. We all own our own health. The most clever people that come up with the most elaborate excuse isn't in any better shape after they're done saying it. So once we take responsibility and accountability ourselves, we can then move forward. We know that it's complex. I'm still trying to work out the numbers that you gave earlier, but I know
those were a lot of numbers. That's why I wanted to make sure that we got it and it made sense to everybody.
But I know I've focused on eating less, eating more fresh fruits and vegetables, and exercising more. Basic and bottom line. And the thing is, be evangelical about it. Share that with the people who you love in your house, in your community, in your congregations, in your schools. Because if we're going to change the state of obesity in our state, for all Louisianians, we have to do it one person at a time, but we have to spread it out. And with that, we hope that we have insurers that give us credit for doing a better job and bringing down our weight and being healthier, that schools recognize the opportunity that they could have healthier kids, and it's fun to go do PE and exercise, and the kids will probably be more well-behaved afterwards. There are so many corollary benefits that we somehow have put to the side and not focused on the core issue.
And I want to get to Karen.
Own your own health.
Own your own health. And something that I want us to be very careful about, in exercising more, we shouldn't take that as a ticket to eat more, okay? Because that will defeat the purpose. That will defeat the purpose, Karen, yeah.
Right. So my take home is the question I get asked all the time is, what's the best diet? And so my answer is the one that you can stick to. And it is. And it's not a diet. And never use the diet word. Never use the diet word.
That's out of my vocabulary.
That's right. It's out of the vocabulary. It's a lifestyle change. And and like we said, if you want to go splurge at the restaurant and get something, you don't have to eat the whole thing.
Right.
It's okay to take doggy bags. That's really socially acceptable.
Peter, I want to get you in here.
I'd like to these comments and say, really, it starts at home. We can talk about industry, and we can talk about the government, we can talk about the insurers, but really it starts at home. And it really starts at T-minus 9 months is where we need to begin thinking about our kids. So that's my take-home message really, is it starts at home. You know, we're with our children more than anyone else in the entire world, so it starts at home.
And Dr. Fino, just
I think
15 seconds.
Take it one step at a time. Balance, moderation, eat more fruits and vegetables, drink more water, and exercise. Just doing walking 30 minutes a day will reduce your risk of diabetes by 60%. It's just a simple stuff, guys.
And
you can all do this.
You can start right where you are.
You can start it right away.
Well, we have run out of time for our question and answer segment. I'd like to thank all of our panelists for being here. Lots of great information. Secretary Greenstein, Dr. Elkin Hirsch, Dr. Kaczmarczyk, and Dr. Fino. We just appreciate your insight so much on this very important topic. When we come back, I'll have a few closing comments. Stay right there. Well, that is all the time we have for this edition of Louisiana Public Square. We encourage you to visit our website at lpb.org/public square. Take this month's survey, view extended interview clips, and read more about tonight's topic on our backgrounder. Remember, you can also follow us now on Facebook and Twitter. While the state of Louisiana is the largest employer in the state, taxpayers paid $1.78 billion towards state employees' retirement system last year. Governor Bobby Jindal is proposing a revamp of the system to make it more sustainable. But does his plan truly address the problem? And how can he transform the system while still honoring the promise made to employees who've provided years of public service? Watch Redefining State Retirement next month on Louisiana Public Square. Thanks so much for being with us tonight, and have a good one. We'll see you next time.
For a copy of this program, call 1-800-973-7246 or go online to www.lpb.org. Support for this program is provided by the men and women of the Louisiana Forestry Association. Through sustainable forestry, LFA members promote the health and productivity of Louisiana's forests for generations to come. And the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting.